All right, so Three Ninjas Podcast, Domino, Hess Jones, Bobby, and I know y'all didn't expect us to come back, but we here, just deal with it. You probably like it anyway. But Retro Games Expo, the expo going on here in Hartford, Connecticut. I think the 27th and the 28th, if I'm correct. And, we wanted to get a little more info on it, talk to, a couple people about it. But right now we have the founder, I hope, the founder of Retro Games Expo, and also the founder of Retro Games Plus, which has 4 locations, I think, 3 in Connecticut and 1 in California, with a 5th one coming in California soon.
Correct.
So on the line right now, we have Mr. Kris Krohn. Kris, how you doing?
I'm great, man. Thank you.
Hello?
Yeah.
We hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Kris, how you doing, man?
I'm good. Everything is good. Thank you.
Good to hear. Good to hear. So now, explain to us really quickly, because I know we don't have much time with you. What is Retro Games Expo?
So it's retro. It is a retro gaming expo, but technically it's Retro World Expo. It's
Retro World Expo. I apologize.
Yeah, that's okay. And what it is we're going into our 7th year hosting it now in our 4th year in Hartford, 7th year overall. We originally started at the Oakdale Theater back in 2015 in Wallingford, Connecticut, and then we expanded to the Connecticut Convention Center in Hartford. I think this will be our 4th year now. So overall, what it is we named it Retro World Expo. It is primarily a retro gaming expo, but we've added so many different other things around it at this point that it's really, I would call it more like a celebration of 80s, 90s pop culture in a way.
Okay. So now, what was the reason for starting the Retro World Expo? Was it that you saw a need for that, or you didn't see any out there? Like, what was the thought process behind creating this?
A little, probably both of those things. Originally, there's been other conventions that have been around, like PAX East, Penny Arcade Expo up in Boston, Too Many Games, Portland Retro Gaming Expo. And about 7 years ago, just to step back, I opened my stores about 11 years ago now, Retro Games Plus. And then it was about 7 years ago that, there kind of just seemed like there wasn't much in the Northeast other than really PAX East and a couple others, maybe one down in Jersey. And that was about it. And what happened, which was kind of interesting, was around the same exact time, 7 years ago, we started Retro World Expo, and a few other guys who were actually pretty close with these guys started a few other shows. Long Island Retro Gaming Expo, Retro Game Con up in Syracuse, and another one down in Jersey called Day Video Game Con. All right around the same time started. And we're all close with those guys, and we're all kind of cross-promote between each other. But it seemed like there was a need for it.
Okay, cool. So being that, you are in this field, I'm guessing you're like an 80s baby and you celebrate the 80s and, all that retro game stuff. So what was your experience with games in the 80s? Like, what was your first console?
So I was born I am an 80s baby. I was born in 81. So I got the full length of it. But my experience was, I remember early on kind of like my pops having Atari, and I remember just playing a little bit of Atari, but like a little bit of River Raid and stuff. And then it was, I think, for my 5th birthday, 1985, or 4th birthday, 1986, I got a Nintendo. And that kind of just was like mind blowing. I was actually just telling my son that the other day, that like the jump between Atari and NES, I was comparing it to literally like the jump between like having NES and then playing like Xbox Series X. Like the jump was like so, it was like, that sounds absurd because it's like 20 years in between, but it was like so mind blowing going from Atari to NES. And so, that was my experience. I grew up an NES kid, and then had Sega Genesis and PlayStation 1s and N64s and Sega Saturn, Sega CDs. And I gamed my whole childhood. Yeah.
I want to ask you a question, because I think everybody has one of these. What was the game that you played where you was like, oh, it ain't getting no better than this?
I mean, I'm still in love with like Legend of Zelda. NES. Like they were asking my son was asking me the other day. He said, "What's your favorite games?" And I always slot in like Legend of Zelda for NES as number one. And but you know what? Like that one was mine. Like that one is up there. But when they came out with Link to the Past for Super Nintendo, I think that's when I was like, it's not. This is like the epitome of gaming. Like I couldn't imagine it getting better than that. Yeah, so probably that game. Probably Link to the Past, actually.
Yeah.
I'm mad we all had one of those. Like,
Yeah, we all got those games.
We're getting no better than this.
Yeah.
We see everything now. Like, what the fuck was we thinking? Like we was happy with GoldenEye.
Oh yeah, GoldenEye. I think GoldenEye was mine. I was like, I can't get no better than this.
Nah. Go back, look at that. Like, it's all squares.
Yeah.
Now, was there a game that you wanted as a kid that you got when you got older? Because, you know, whether it be, you know, whatever happened that you're, you know, that you couldn't get now, but now that you're like the retro games guy?
I mean, I went back and bought like a Turbo Graphics. I have one now, like that I never had one of those when I was a kid. Actually, I have like a Turbo Duo. You know, it's kind of crazy now because a lot of this stuff gets traded into the store, but
right.
So I kind of like get to experiment with a lot of it. So yeah, I took home a Turbo Duo, and like I think that those back in the day were like $700, which is why like nobody had them. Yeah, I think like and so I started playing around with that a little bit. Yeah, I like the Turbo Graphics and the Turbo Duo. Yeah.
Okay. Now, what's like the rarest thing that's been returned to your store? Well, that was like traded into your store, because we talk about like the ET game all the time where it was like there's no copies of it. You know, they burned them and, you know, you can't really find one. Like, what's the rarest thing that's coming to your store?
So I kind of like, I'm not a huge collector myself because like the stores, it would kind of like defeat the purpose if I was like collecting everything and then have to sell it at the same time, you know? So, but what I've kind of done over the years is I like collecting like the top 5, like kind of rarest games of like each console as they get like traded in. So probably like I mean, I have a lot of other kind of, I guess there's 2 different things. Like there's rare and then there's expensive. Like for rare, like I have some old like NES prototypes, and I have like, I mean, the thing that's really rare is for like Atari is like, I have this like, it's called an Atari color generator. It was like given out to like Atari service techs back in the day. Like if you were having issues with your Atari at home and your TV, they would come with this cartridge, and it's not even a game. It's just a cartridge that they put in, and it would show like the color bars on your CRT TV.
I remember
screen.
that. I remember that.
And so like, it's super rare because like when Atari went under and like these were service techs, it wasn't to the general public. And then like, you just never find them. So rarity wise, it's really rare, but like value wise, I mean, it's still got some value to it, maybe $500, $600, but so that's a really rare one. But like expensive wise, probably the most expensive game I have is like a Magical Chase for Turbo Graphics. You familiar with that game? You familiar with it?
Nah.
Never heard of it.
No.
No.
Yeah, it's a pretty rare one. It's like an inbox Magical Chase. I don't know. The values are all over the place. Maybe like anywhere from like 7 to like 15,000 for that game. It's pretty expensive one.
Jesus.
Okay. All right. Now, what are your personal top 5 favorite games of all time? Your personal top 5, not what you think is the top 5 games.
All right, my personal 5. Legend of Zelda, number 1 for NES. I throw Link to the Past in there. Let me see. I'm going to slot in, as I'm a big Zelda fan. Breath of the Wild was up in there too. I loved Breath of the Wild, but that might have gotten pushed out by Elden Ring. I actually like love Elden Ring so much, man. I know.
I gotta play that.
And I know it's
crazy.
Have any of you guys played Elden Ring yet?
No,
not yet.
I know myself.
Oh my gosh.
I gotta play it when the hype gotta die down first. Then I gotta play it. It's the same way. It's the same way I felt with Breath of the Wild, because they were saying it was better than Ocarina of Time. I was like, no, hell no, no way. Then I played it. I was like, okay, I see what you're talking about.
Do you like Breath of the Wild better than Ocarina?
Slightly better. Slightly.
Yeah, me too. And I like Ocarina, but I have the 3 Zeldas up there: Breath of the Wild, Link to the Past, Legend of Zelda NES. And then I'm a big Metroid fan. I really love like Super Metroid a lot for Super Nintendo. And if I had to throw one more in there, that might be 6. But I'm a huge like Castlevania Symphony of the Night fan too. I love that. But Elden Ring slots in there just recently because I put like 250 hours on that game, and I'm like, oh my god, this game is so good.
Damn, I might have to get that shit now.
Hello.
Yeah, it's pretty epic. I loved it.
That's crazy. Now, being with like the decade and like just a long gap between you and your son, have you really went in depth with him about games? About like, yo, for NBA Jam, I had to know like the big head code. Like I had to remember the blood code for Mortal Kombat, like that type of game. Like y'all just get stuff thrown at you with DLC. Like we actually had to work for like stuff in Halo and all that stuff.
You broke up just a little bit. What was the question, man? I'm sorry.
I said, you know, with the large gap between you and your son, have you gone in depth with him about how video games were then they were, and then how they are now? With like you had to remember like the big head code for NBA Jam and stuff like that, rather than everything just be given to you for a fee now.
Yeah, all the time. And just a little history on that too. My son, he's like 13 now. He grew up with me in the video game stores. So I used to like on the first store I opened up back in 2011, he was only 2 and I used to change his diapers like in the store. But he's been surrounded by games his whole life. The funny thing is he's not a retro gamer. I tried putting him in front of like retro games and he actually like couldn't didn't latch onto it. And like the spatialness of like just a 2D game, like he couldn't really seem to like, I don't know, didn't appease to him, but he's a super good gamer. And like when we play modern games, like I can't hang with them. I mean, I played Fortnite for a while. I played Call of Duty, and like it got to a certain period of time where like I'm playing with him and his, other 12, 13, 10-year-old buddies. And it's like, they would stop sending me the invites. I knew something was up. I'm like, well, how come you guys didn't send me the invite for Call of Duty? And they were like,
well, your dad is trash, man.
You fucking about your death ratio.
Yeah, it pretty much he was trying to be nice about it, but I think that's what his friends are saying was like, yeah, your dad's trash, dude. We can't be playing with your dad. But like if I put him in, I tried putting him in like front of like Mega Man 2, like here, play this. And like, dude, he's just like dying. Like, I'm like, dude, you're trash, bro. Like, come on, man. How can you can't make these jumps? So it's like, kind of like, I know. It's like, I don't know if it's just different, different style of game or different parts of your brain, that you, for each of those types of games. But yeah, we talk about that stuff all the time.
Yeah. I remember I tried that with my daughter not too long ago because we played, Streets of Rage 4, the newest one that came out, and she liked it. So I'm like, oh, okay, so I'm gonna introduce you to the original one for Sega. She was not rocking with that shit at all. She was like, Dad, it's only 3 buttons on here. We can't run. We can't do nothing. What do you have me playing? Wasn't feeling that shit at all.
I feel like it's maybe kind of like when I go back to that story of like my dad put me in front of the Atari, like I didn't like it, It was too simple. But I don't know. At the same time, like with the stores and even with the expo, like I got a lot of young kids that do come in and do play retro games. I don't know what the percentage is. They're young kids. They want to play the new stuff, kind of like we want to play the new stuff. I feel like, and they don't have the attachment to this stuff like we do.
Right.
But every once in a while through the stores, I will get these young kids that come in that are like just love retro gaming, and makes me feel good. Like I actually really love seeing that when these young kids are really into it.
Okay. All right. So how much more time we got with you?
I kind of know a little bit more time.
Okay, cool.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay. Now, do you come from a family of gamers? Because you mentioned your dad. Like, do you have any siblings that play? Mom play? Does your wife play at all?
My wife, absolutely not. Like maybe Miss Pac-Man. That's it. Nothing to do with games at all. My dad, no. My dad, like aside from the Atari story that I have, actually, as we were growing up, he used to like kind of come in and just be like, get off those games, like kind of hated them. There's stories of him like just ripping the Nintendo consoles out of the wall. So he was not a gamer. And then my brother, I have an older brother. He's 5 years older than me, and me and him still game to this day. Like we'll sit down, and that's kind of our thing. Even when we get together, him and another buddy will just sit down and pick a game and just game all night. So yeah, me and my brother kind of always played games together.
Okay. Now, when it comes to Retro Games Plus, I guess what prompted you to open up that store? Was it just like the love for retro titles? Was it just like like I said before, like, you know, you just saw that there weren't a lot out here on the East Coast or, you know, in your vicinity? Like what prompted that?
So I was actually living in Vegas, Las Vegas. I moved from Connecticut. I'm originally from Connecticut. I moved to Vegas like after college, and then I was living out there, and I was kind of doing some real estate stuff, and I was really just didn't like the corporate world. And I had kind of always like been a big gamer when I was a huge gamer, and kind of like drifted away from it, you know, as you got older. And then I started getting back into it, and then my wife got pregnant. She was pregnant with my son, and I started going up to flea markets in Las Vegas. They have like one of the biggest flea markets like in the country. And I came across like, it was just like kind of like a smorgasbord of video games back then. This was like 2008-ish. Like it was a weird time where there was like eBay was kind of like out there, but it was like not that many eBay sellers. Amazon was just taking off. And the retro gaming community and market was just like dead. Like nobody was really into it. And I remember going up to this flea market, and I was hunting around, and I came across a collection of NES games, and I was like, oh, I'll bring these home to play, not to like resell or anything. I brought them home and played a few of them, and then I went to sell them on eBay, and like one of the games that I found was a Bubble Bobble 2. And this was back in probably 2008. And I think even then, like I think I sold the game for like $150, let's say. I mean, now that game loose cart, maybe 400, 450. I'm not sure. Probably around 400.
What'd you buy it for?
Oh, back then, $2. Everything was $2. Yeah, everything was $2. And so I started going up to these flea markets all the time. And this was the early days of game hunting. There was no game hunting videos, no YouTubers doing it, none of that stuff. And I just started, I literally was coming home with trash bags full of games. I mean, I would find little Samson Bubble Bobble 2s, all sorts of Xbox games, PS2, Super Nintendo. And I turned my whole garage at that time into like a shipping center. And I was selling on Amazon mostly at that time. And early Amazon. And then from there, I just kind of like put together a business plan, said, you know what, I think I could, there was a few other video game stores around. So maybe I moved back to Connecticut, quit my job, came back and with a U-Haul full of inventory that I saved up, and then opened the first store in Westport, Connecticut in 2011. So yeah, I kind of took a chance, and it kind of all worked out.
Since you were born in like 81, right? Did you ever hit that stigma that people? Because I hear about the stigma in the 80s that people had of games being for kids. Was that ever a thing?
Yeah, still kind of a thing, I think. Well, no, maybe I don't know. Has that gone away? Maybe it's gone away now.
Well, I say like because I was born in '86, right? And I think we kind of got a pass because when we were coming up, games started to become like more hardcore. Like you got the Mortal Kombats. And then when Grand Theft Auto and Halo came out, it was kind of like accepted.
Yeah.
But before everything was like everything like kiddish before then.
I mean, a good example of that actually is what I've gotten into recently mostly is I've actually been like collecting a lot of video game t-shirts. I don't know if you guys know anything about video game shirts, if you followed anything with like vintage clothes or anything, but like video game t-shirts in general, like they're expensive and there's some really rare ones out there. And that's kind of been my thing lately. I love them because I get to wear them too. So I really like collecting video game shirts. And if you go back to like early 80s, like if you wanted to find like early vintage Mario shirts from like 1981, 82, 83, 84, there is no large sizes. Everything was kid sizes up until about probably, I want to say like late 80s, you'll start to find some shirts where they were like large XL, you know, they started kind of catering more towards adults maybe. But early on, it was like Nintendo was just, everything was kids, little kids. So they have like the little kids bed sheets and all that stuff. Like it was really little kids. So yeah, maybe like late 80s, I want to say that shifted. Definitely in the 90s, it changed for sure. Like Mortal Kombat, Genesis, all that stuff. Yeah.
Okay. Now, How deep did you get into video games as a kid? Like, were you going to the tournaments? Were you like, just staying up all night playing the games? Like, how crazy was it for you?
Oh yeah, I was a diehard gamer, man. I mean, I was up all the time. Yeah, playing all the time. As far as playing up all night, Final Fantasy VII's, 100%ing it, and
Jesus Christ, man.
doing Gran. I mean, and I liked all sorts of games like Gran Turismo. Like they had a mode in there where you could like, I don't know if you ever saw this in Gran Turismo 2, you could do like 500 laps and like the Daytona 500. It took like 4 hours, 5 hours of nonstop racing. Done that. I was a big fan of like trying to like 100% a lot of stuff. And then like my earliest gaming experience, which is kind of cool and it ties into Retro World Expo, was I went to, I think it was 1989. So I would have been like 8 years old. I don't even know how we got to this thing. I went with my brother. I don't know who took us. I asked my brother. We can't remember how we got there, but we went to the Nintendo World Championships qualifying event that took place in Hartford, Connecticut in 1989. And I share this memory with my brother and then like one other guy who used to be involved with the expo. And other than that, I've never really met anybody else that went to that. But that was probably a pretty life-changing thing for me. I can still remember it pretty vividly. Like my brother, they were competing to go to the Nintendo World Championships, which took place in California. And I think you had to they did 27 of them across the country. They happened to choose Hartford back then, which was awesome. And you went in there, it was all Nintendo branded, everything. I mean, 8 years old, it was mind blowing. And then they had like a stage where people were competing. And then they had like, I think at the time, I don't know when Super Mario 3 came out. I just remember waiting in line to play Super Mario 3. You had to wait in line to demo a lot of games. And there was Nintendo merch everywhere. And like, I didn't really, obviously it had a big impact on me. And then later on in life, after opening up the stores and then bringing the expo back to Hartford, I'm kind of like, well, maybe that had a bigger impact on my life than I thought it did, kind of thing. Because here I am kind of like, almost kind of trying to bring back what that was in 1989 back now to Hartford again. So yeah, that's kind of my experience gaming as a kid. Loved it. Yeah, still love it.
Okay. Now, are there any plans to move the expo to any other states? Like your Californias, like your big states, like your Texas, your Floridas, and things like that, or do you want to keep it central here in Connecticut so we have something? We don't get much here.
Definitely keeping that one in Connecticut.
Thank you.
We love being at the Connecticut. Yeah, we love being at the Connecticut Convention Center. Love that building. And my stores, love having my stores in Connecticut. I look forward to coming back to it every year. It is a lot of work putting on this show. I've just, because I don't know if I'm sitting here in California. I don't know if you know that. I actually live in California. Did I tell you that? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm out here now, and I fly back before the expo, but most of it can be coordinated, over phone. And I have a business partner who I should mention. His name is Lance Cortez. And he helps me with the show. He used to be instrumental with RetroWare TV. It's really him and I. So I do have a partner back there. And we put the show on. And we've discussed, possibly like a West Coast thing. There's SoCal Retro Gaming Expo. Like I live in LA. So there's SoCal Retro Gaming Expo out here. And there's another one. That's really the big one right now, SoCal Retro Gaming Expo. So plans to expand it? Maybe. But definitely that Retro World in Connecticut will always be there. I have no plans to move that.
Okay, appreciate you. Now, the expo this year, is there anything that you guys were able to implement this year that you weren't able to implement in previous years?
Yeah, we have a few new things. And just to go, have you guys been to the show before?
No,
nope, not yet.
I just found out about it maybe like a year or two ago.
Oh, good. Nice. All right. So a few things we added, and I'll say in the last couple of years. One thing we added last year, which was such a big hit, and we're bringing it back this year, was we did bring live wrestling to the show. I don't know if you guys are wrestling fans at all.
All right.
Are you? You like wrestling?
You got me. I think you might have me.
So we work with a group called Blitzkrieg Pro, who is a local amateur, but semi-pro actually, organization that works out of Connecticut, Massachusetts. Guy Jeremy Leary, These guys are awesome. They did like the most professional, like realistic wrestling last year. I mean, there was some bits where like they're like putting the guy's neck over the ropes, and like he had a NES cartridge in his mouth, and they kick him through the ropes on the other side. I mean, like awesome shit. It was like, yeah, dude, like, yeah, blow this. Like, dude, it was so badass. Like the wrestling was just awesome. So we're bringing that back this year. Few new additions. We are doing, we did this actually like 3 years ago. I think this was pre-COVID. We do a Tetris World Championships qualifier where the Northeast qualifying event. Anybody good at Tetris?
Hesh, my man.
I'm not good at it, but I like to play it.
Yeah. So it's open to the. So you might want to go, like join this. It's open to the public on Saturday. Basically, like 10 to 2 is qualifying. You qualify. You have to get a certain. I don't know all the specifics on the scores, but you have to get a certain number, and then they take the top 12. The top 12 compete in the finals, which is 3 p.m. on Saturday. And then the winner of that gets $500, and you get a slot in the Portland Retro Gaming Expo, the World Championships, which take place in Portland. Which I've been to that and I've seen it, and it is insane watching these guys play Tetris. For just a little story on that too, like for a long time, that Tetris World Championships was kind of like dominated by like these old heads, who were probably like 30s and 40s and that had kind of dominated it. And it's kind of blown up now. It's like international. They get people from like China and Asia and all over the world, and Germany that come to it now. And now it's like dominated by like, I think the last kid was like 14 years old. And like I think the high score had been like 1.5 million. And this kid put up like a 3.5 million score, something like absurd. And he's like 14. Yeah. It's like, I don't know, younger gamers can process that stuff quicker, I guess, as you get old, So that's a new thing. We'll have that back to Tetris World Championships qualifier. And then we're working with another group, Affinity Esports. They're out of like Danielson, Sandy Hook area of Connecticut. And they're bringing PC games. So they're bringing like 15 PCs, and they're running, this is new. So I was working on a schedule the other day to see if I can remember them all. Some of these games I'm not even familiar with. CSGO, I know that. Counter-Strike Go. They're running Knockout City, I believe, which I'm not familiar with that game.
Oh yeah, we played that.
Yeah.
You played Knockout City? Okay.
Yeah, it's like a dodgeball game, but like the future.
Oh, okay, nice. I like that. So Knockout City, CSGO, and Rocket League, they're running.
I suck at Rocket League.
Me too. I'm not good at it. I played it. So that's a new thing. And then have some good guests this year. The Mortal Kombat guys will be there. Daniel Pacina, Carlos Pacina.
Nice.
Daniel Pacina played like Johnny Cage and all the ninjas, Sub-Zero and Scorpion. And then his brother Carlos played Raiden in the Mortal Kombats. So they'll be there. We have a bunch of other good guests. But that's generally the new stuff this year.
Okay. Now, is there anything that you wanted to implement this year that you just couldn't pull off in time, or wasn't?
Yeah, there is. There's one thing. There was one thing that we did want to implement, which was a really cool idea, actually. So there's some groups. There was a group called Rad Stallions that does like they're like an 80s, 90s car show. And we were trying to bring them to run the car show in the parking lot outside of the expo. And we thought it would have been a really cool addition. Obviously, it's not video games, but it's still like 80s, 90s. And these are like like all those 80s, 90s cars, the Supras, the Nissan Skylines, like all that 80s, 90s stuff that I love those cars. And we tried to work it out, and we couldn't. It was kind of late, and we couldn't work out all the details to it. But hopefully next year, that'll be a really cool addition. We felt like to be able to walk in from the show, see all these 80s, 90s cars, and go into the show, go up the escalators, see all the pop culture stuff from that era. We will have a couple 80s, 90s cars inside the show, but we couldn't get the big car show outside. So, yeah. Oh, and there's another one we're implementing too. It's obviously always video games and 80s, 90s stuff, but trying to always just like keep it cool and don't want to like get outdated. So trying to do new stuff. We do have a dance crew out of Hartford. They're called Calligraphy. They're kind of like a Jabberwocky style.
I heard of them, yeah.
Have you heard of Calligraphy?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Nice. That's good to know. Yeah, they kind of have a good presence. They do like a lot of like dance show stuff, and they'll be there. They're doing like they do an hour set, like dance show. It's called Order and Chaos, and it's like a 90s like synthwave, like dance scene kind of thing that they do. So this is their first year. I'm excited for it. I think it'll be a cool, like, I think people will like it. Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't bought my tickets yet. I gotta get those soon so I can head up to Hartford and call out of work. So I have a reason to fucking do something on the weekend.
Where are you guys out of? You guys all out of Connecticut?
Yeah.
Bobby's from New Haven. Me and Hester from Bridgeport.
Okay, nice.
Yeah. Where are you from originally?
I'm originally from a small town like east of Connecticut, like out by Willimantic area, Columbia, Bolton, Connecticut. Originally is where I grew up.
Damn.
Yeah. So you're the Willimantic. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Okay.
Out by Yukon area. Yeah.
Far out fucking city. I'm like, I never heard that shit. Oh, it must be near Yukon. Cool.
Yeah, I know. If I said Columbia, Connecticut, you would have said, "What are you talking about?"
Never, you made that shit up. I don't know what All right. So now, Kris, is there anything else that we need to know about Retro World Expo before we let you go? Pricing, surprises, anything? That
I'll run over
that's coming up.
Just other things that are there. We do some game shows. There's tons of prizes. We do like an Ultimate Gamer Challenge, which is like a cross-platform tournament across like they play everything from like you have to compete at every game like Atari, Nintendo, all the way up to like Xbox 360, Xbox stuff. We call it the Ultimate Gamer Challenge. Okay. That's a good one. We do run some like retro tournament games. We run Mortal Kombat 2, WWF No Mercy, NBA Jam. We do run a GoldenEye tournament there if you want to play GoldenEye.
That shit is unplayable now.
That shit hurts my eyes when I play. Like, how the fuck do we survive this?
And then just a few other things. We've run another big esports tournament called Retro World Rumble, which is hosted by a group, Game Underground, out of Massachusetts. That's like all your big like fighting games, Smash, Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter. I think they're running King of Fighters, Tekken, if you guys like King of Fighters or Tekken at all.
Wow.
And then, of course, tons of vendors. We have 160 vendors, special guests. We do a big auction. If you're looking to buy stuff, we have a video game and collectibles auction Saturday and Sunday. We do a couple of those things. We do some charity auctions for Extra Life we work with, and another group out of Hartford called Dungeons of Hope, which is two really good charity groups that we like to give back to. It's August 27th, 28th. Tickets are available. Yeah, it's a really fun time. I think you guys are going to enjoy it. It's awesome.
Okay. Dope. Now, what's your social media?
We are on Instagram at Retro World Expo. Facebook, probably the same, Retro World Expo. And Twitter at Retro World Expo. The website is retroworldexpo.com. And then haven't done it yet, but I might even create a Retro World Expo TikTok account, but it's not up yet. But I might
have to. You might see some wild shit there that you got to document and actually put up.
Yeah, I just started doing TikTok with the stores like 3 weeks ago. I was like, all right, I'm finally going to do this. I held off for as long as I could, but I'm in it now.
TikTok's going to get everybody eventually. You got to do it.
Everybody.
Yeah, I know. Exactly.
Now, one more thing I wanted to ask you. Now, you've been doing the Retro World Expo since 2015, right?
Yes.
What type of people have you run into when it comes to just like, I guess convention goers? Because we run into like some really you run into the cool people, then you run into like the really weird people, then you run into the people that don't go outside much, like the incels and stuff like that. Like, what type of crowd can we expect at this Retro World Expo?
Sure. Well, first I want to I collect a lot of things now. Actually, I'm kind of like because through my stores we sell like VHS games, we sell vintage teas now, we sell video games, we sell comic books. And each of these different like there's a community for each one of those. There's, if you want to collect comic books, there is a whole comic book collectors community. You want to collect VHS, there's a VHS community. Vintage tees, another community. The retro gaming community, honestly, in my opinion, is one of the best. I love it. Probably that and the vintage tea community are like just awesome people. In all 4 or 5 of those, there's always weirdos. The weirdos are cool too. I love weird people, and there's odd people. You guys, doing this podcast, you're a part of that, and like love all of you guys. Love that community. Like when I come back to the expo, in any expo that I go to, like seeing the faces and like talking about games and like the excitement among like people and like just people you haven't seen in a long time. It's awesome. And in a lot of the retro community like loves to trade amongst themselves. They'll get together and play games, and it's just a good community. So the vibe at the show is just like, it's a really good, like fun vibe. So yeah, I love the retro gaming community in general, but we do also have other vendors there too. We do have comics, we do have VHS. We've kind of tried to incorporate all of those. So it's not just retro gaming. There's a little mix of all of that stuff there. And anime is a whole nother community too.
Right.
So.
Okay. All right. So Retro World Expo going down 27th and 28th in Hartford, Connecticut. Hopefully we see you there, Kris, and we thank you for your time, man.
Yeah, thank you guys. I really appreciate it. I look forward to it. If you guys, you know what? Hey, I'll put you on this right now. Do you guys? I have 1 booth left at the show. Dang, I'm back.
All right, there you go.
Hello, Kris. How are you?
All right.
Good. Dang, it got cut off like right at the last minute.
Fucking best part.
Yeah, so you mentioned booth.
Yeah, you mentioned the booth.
Yeah, I was gonna say to you guys, I have 1 booth left at the expo. We have 164 of them. I have 163 sold. I was going to offer. We've had other podcasters come set up. You guys can you could just be there and promote yourselves, or you could actually run a podcast from the expo if you wanted. A lot of times podcasts in the past will do like little interviews and run their show from there. But I would extend it. You don't have to give me an answer right now, but if you wanted it, I do have 1 booth left that I could save for you guys if you wanted it.
Yes, I would like you to hold on to that, please. I will get back to it at my earliest convenience, and we will let you know, because a good fat brother over here is going on vacation, and I don't want to inconvenience him in any way. But I mean, if the show must go on without him, he's here in spirit. We'll just put a big cutout cardboard of you somewhere, and then we'll just have a mask or something laying down. I don't know, but we'll figure it out. But we'll get back to you in like a day or so. So just hold that for us.
I will do that. Well, thank you guys. I appreciate it very much having me on. Yes. That was a good interview. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Look forward to talking to you soon, and hope everything goes well with the expo. Hopefully we see you there.
Yeah, I'd like to meet you guys. And let me know about the booth.
Definitely, man.
All right. Thanks,
thank you.
All right. See ya. Take care.